Yeah, every time you turn on the news or open up your internet browser, there's some data breach somewhere.
Yes.
Well, we have a very valuable benefit, and that's our pension, right? That's money. And the one thing we have to do to protect it is make sure we use very strong, unique passwords, and we set up multi-factor authentication. Definitely want to dive into that one during this conversation.
We will, for sure. Hi, this is Everett Crockett. Welcome to TRS, Your Retirement in Focus. Members and friends, I don't know about you, but doesn't it seem like the year is already flying by? Daylight saving time has already gone into effect. The pollen is starting to cover everything, and as usual, the spring temperatures are setting early records. And even with the seemingly fast pace of the year, TRS continues to strive to be the premier retirement system by providing exceptional and comprehensive service to our internal and external customers and members. The Teachers Retirement System of Georgia is made up of several key divisions. Joining us today is Tom McMurray, the Chief Information Officer of the IT Division of TRS, a role that he has been in for the last 4 years. Prior to joining TRS, Tom was the CIO of the Department of Revenue, the Department of Corrections, and the Department of Driver Services. Before joining the state, Mr. McMurray served in private sector leadership positions in public accounting, banking, and commercial real estate. He earned his bachelor's degree in business administration from Georgia State University. It's a pleasure to have him with us today, so members and friends, join me in welcoming our guest today, Mr. Tom McMurray, the CIO of the Information Technology Division of TRS. Tom, welcome to our podcast. It's great to have you with us today.
Well, thank you for having me. I look forward to it.
Yes. Now, Tom, as you know, we have several operating divisions here at TRS, but this is the first time that we actually get to sit down with the IT division. And I can't express this enough. I've really been looking forward to this one in particular.
Well, IT serves a very important function, and largely we're behind the scenes. And if we're doing our job right, a lot of times we stay behind the scenes. It's when we come forward where we have issues.
Exactly right. Kind of like offensive linemen. As long as their name isn't being called, it's usually meaning they're doing a good job. So
that's good news.
Behind the scenes is a good way of putting it. Now, Tom, I know that cybersecurity and data breaches are a reality in today's world. These first few questions are centered on that topic, and we'd like to get your thoughts on the big picture as it relates to this subject. So to start, we've all heard about major data breaches: Equifax, AT&T, T-Mobile, Verizon, Target and Home Depot, and others. From your perspective, why are breaches like these so common today?
Well, these companies are gathering a lot of data on all of us, and those data sets become very valuable for the bad guys to collect information. You're talking about identity data, financial data, employment history, credit history. Again, a very rich data set that makes it a very attractive sort of buffet for these bad guys to mine that data. And they weaponize that data to do harm.
Against the very owners of the data originally, ourselves.
Absolutely.
So, the saying used to be knowledge is power. Well, I guess for those who decide to use it in ways like this, there's probably a whole nother saying for it. But truly, I understand that. And as I think about that, Tom, it seems like at least once a month, I get a letter in the mail about some breach and some or all of your data has been exposed. So it really is a reality in today's world.
Yeah, I got a letter yesterday in the mail. But yeah, every time you turn on the news or open up your internet browser, there's some data breach somewhere.
Yes.
And these systems that we have today are very complex. There's lots of components to them. And if you miss one patch somewhere along the line and the bad guys find that one vulnerability, they attack it and they're able to get into these data sets and steal them.
Yes, unfortunate, but very true. Well, what are some of the biggest lessons our TRS members should take away from these data breaches?
Well, unfortunately, you can pretty much count that your data's out there. And again, as I mentioned earlier, you're talking about your identity data, your name, your date of birth, your social security number, all your address history, your financial history. So, think of all the systems you use where knowing that information could be weaponized against you.
Yes, very, very true. Very, very true.
And the one thing we have to do to protect it is when we set up our accounts online, make sure we use very strong, unique passwords, and we set up multi-factor authentication.
Oh, that's
Definitely
good.
Want to dive into that one during this conversation.
Oh, we will, for sure, for sure. Tom, even if someone thinks I'm just one person, their data is still very valuable. Why do cyber criminals target everyday individuals?
Well, there's a variety of reasons. Sometimes it's just bad luck. You're part of a data set, randomly chosen. They can buy these whole data sets on the dark web for virtually nothing, and you just happen to be a name they pick at random and go after. Mm-hmm. You know, sometimes you have something that they want. You have something of value they want, whether it be money or some knowledge that you have, where you live, just some target audience.
Okay.
So there's a variety of reasons they may target you. But given the amount of data that's out there, you're actually a fairly easy target.
Wow. That's kind of scary when you really think about it. It scares me just to think about it. Really
and it is something to be afraid of, but don't be afraid of it. Just be prepared for it. Just set up your accounts in the right way that makes them less likely to be a target, because criminals are looking for easy hits. Uh-huh. They're not looking to try to crack into NASA, for example. They're looking to get in and get out and get whatever they need. So the harder you make it, the more levels of criminal you eliminate.
That's well said. And one thing, if we can take away, ladies and gentlemen, let's do our due diligence. There are some things we just should do, and we don't want to just hand it over to the bad guys. Let's do our best to be secure and safe with our data. Well, Tom, just like everyday individuals are targeted, our TRS members are also often targeted. So let's spend a few minutes discussing how cyber criminals target our TRS members. Can you explain why criminals specifically want to access a member's TRS account?
Well, we have a very valuable benefit, and that's our pension, right? That's money. And if a criminal can somehow take your pension from you, that is a treasure trove for them.
I see.
So that's the primary target if they're going to attack TRS in our member portal, is how do I get that member's pension from them?
Wow. You hear horror stories regularly in the news about some senior individual having been taken advantage of by, just going about their day to day, and someone just take advantage of them and take all their life savings. And there's little you can do after the fact to get it back. So yes, we should do our due diligence once again. Well, what might a bad actor hope to achieve, or what might they want if they were able to get access to this kinds of information?
Well, again, if they can get access to your account, they're going to try to find a way to get your money, right? Like in any kind of account, whether it be banking or anything else, they're trying to extract your money from you. And your best weapon against that is a very strong account setup that includes a unique, and definitely let's focus on unique here.
Yes.
A lot of people reuse passwords.
Yes.
They use the same account and password on every account. Well, if they breach one account, they've breached all your accounts. So my recommendation is create a unique, complex password for every account. Now, you're probably asking, well, how am I going to remember all those passwords?
Yeah.
Well, we'll talk about that later. There's some tools out there that allow you to auto-generate these complex passwords and save them in a wallet. And then when you need them, you can pull them up and they'll autofill.
Oh,
so
excellent.
There's some things that make it easier. And honestly, you have to do it, especially on your identity and your financial accounts.
Understood. Well, oftentimes TRS will send important notifications to our members. Why is it so important for members to act immediately when they receive these types of notices?
Well, you mentioned earlier how once it's happened, it's really out of our hands. Well, in some cases, if we can act quickly, we can undo certain transaction types. Anytime your account's changed at TRS, we're going to send you a notice of some sort, whether it be something in the mail, an email, a text message, whatever your communication preferences are. And so please keep an eye on that. Don't ignore your mail. Don't ignore your email or your text messages. We want you to know something's changed, and hopefully you did it. But if you didn't, the quicker we can act on it, the quicker we can go about resolving it. If too much time goes by, like you said earlier, unfortunately, it might be gone.
Wow, very true. Well, Tom, I'm honored to spend time with a few retired veterans that I met through a mutual friend. And, we're talking about reusing passwords. And on one occasion, one of them shared with me that they were aware of at least one person who uses the word password as their password and the number 1234 as their PIN. And it's just not good. And so given that, let's talk a little bit about account security basics. What does a strong, complex password actually look like today, and how often should a member update it?
Well, a strong password is usually at least 15 characters.
Wow.
I know what you're thinking. 15 characters.
That's a lot of characters.
Computers are very powerful. They can go through a dictionary and attack an account in seconds. So the longer, the better.
Yes.
It needs to contain alpha characters and numerics, uppercase and lowercase, and special characters. Some of the more powerful computers can hack through every combination. The longer it is, the longer it takes. You get a 15, 16 character password, you're talking about decades to crack.
Oh, my
You get a shorter password, 5, 6, 7, something like password, they can crack that in a half a second.
Oh, my goodness. That's a note to myself, if nothing else.
Yes.
Well, TRS strongly recommends multi-factor authentication, or MFA, and you mentioned that a little while ago. Why is an authenticator app the best option for taking advantage of this technology?
Well, we have several options available out there, as do most websites. And I'll start from the worst and come forward. So your email it's out there, right? Everybody, you give your email address out to everybody.
Yes.
And so if you have an easy password there and they get to your email, they've gotten to your second factor as well. And also, every website you go to where you log in has this little button that says forget password.
Yes.
Well, guess where it's going to mail that forget
Right to
password? Right to that email address that they've breached. So you need to secure your email address. But really, it's a whole ecosystem of accounts. So we offer 3 different multi-factor options today, more to come in the future. But text message the same way. People can steal your phone number, and we can cover in depth on that one in just a minute. But the multi-factor authentication method of an authenticator app, of those options, is the most secure.
Okay.
You have an app on your phone that you set up, and it ties to that account and only that account. And every 30 seconds, it gives a 6-digit code, and you key that code in, and that's how you get to your account. Again, if all you have is your account name and password, they're in. It's that third factor that makes it secure. I can know your password, but still can't get into your account without that code.
Wow.
So definitely would like to encourage you on all your accounts, if you have the Authenticator app as an option, or some of the other ones we'll talk about later, that's what I'd prefer. I'd prefer that you leave text messaging, otherwise known as SMS, or email as kind of the last resort.
Okay. Understood. That's great information, by the way. Well, why should our members never, ever share MFA codes, even if a caller ID looks legitimate?
Well, caller ID can be faked. They call it spoofing.
Spoofing, that's right.
I had someone call me not too long ago, and they started yelling at me for calling them. I hadn't called them. Somebody had spoofed my number and was trying to scam them, and they called me back, asking what the heck I was up to. So you just can't trust some of the things that are going on out there. Trust but verify. How about
Yes.
that? In the security world, we have this whole concept of a zero trust model, and honestly, we need to be the same way. Anything we get that's a text message or an email, we need to be skeptical of and verify it.
Yes.
And that includes a phone number. If you get a phone number that looks like it's from, say, your bank, open up the bank's website and call the number published there. Don't just return it on your phone call. Same with a text message. There's a lot of scams going on with text message, answer yes or no, or click on this link.
Yeah, it
Same
is.
with email. You got to don't trust any of it, because more than likely it probably is fraud.
Got that. Well, what about allowing family members to access a member's TRS account? What are your thoughts on that, Tom?
I'd say be very careful with that one. As a general rule, I would say don't do it. But there are cases where maybe you've got somebody that does need to help you. You're not able to access certain things to get into your account. If somebody has power of attorney, for example. But I'd say that's really a legal matter.
Okay.
We probably should get out of being given advice on that one. But as a general rule, I mean, some of the fraud we see is by family members.
Ooh, great point.
People who know you best, people who may have a grudge against you. So, definitely be careful who you give access to this stuff, but definitely, if you feel like you need to, just be very cautious with that.
Good advice. Great advice. I didn't even stop to think about that. Sometimes the people closest to us are the ones we need to watch the most.
Money will bring out
Unfortunately.
the worst in people.
I've seen it happen. Yes, I have. Well, Tom, let's talk a little bit about how our members and the people in general should be protecting their telephone numbers and email addresses, which we just covered a little bit there. But phone account takeovers are becoming more and more common. How do criminals steal a phone number, and why does it matter for our TRS accounts?
Well, the goal of a criminal stealing a phone number is to get whatever your second factor codes are being sent to that number. And they've got a variety of ways they can steal that number. They can do what's called a number port, where they port the number from your account to their account.
Oh, my goodness.
They can do what's called a SIM swap, where they can either call up a customer service rep, they have enough information about you to answer the challenge questions, and they proceed to steal that little card, either physical or virtual, that sits inside of your phone, and then they have your phone number. Again, then they can get all your two-factor codes that come after that. Now, a couple ways to prevent that. Almost every telephone company has a way to set up a PIN on your account. So just knowing enough about you without knowing your PIN doesn't get them access to it.
Okay.
And also, you can set up a lock on your SIM or your eSIM that even if they know all that information, they've got to unlock that, which is another series of challenges to unlock your SIM.
Okay.
So I'd recommend set up a PIN on your mobile account and set up a way to lock your SIM. And all the providers have that.
That's new information for me. I didn't even know you could do that. And it's certainly something I've just taken a note about, and I'm going to do that for myself. Email accounts are often considered the keys to the kingdom. What should members do to secure their email, and when is it time to switch providers?
Yeah, much like your other accounts, you have to secure it with a strong, unique password and multi-factor authentication. When it's time to switch a provider, if you have an email provider that doesn't support MFA, that's when it's time. Multi-factor authentication. I'm going to call it MFA going forward. It's a mouthful. But there are several free services out there that offer secure email accounts. If you have an Apple account, iCloud.com is free. Gmail, Google Mail is free, and they support very strong security. Even Outlook.com, which is Microsoft's email service, is free, and they have strong security as well. So if your account does not have the type of security it needs to have on it, that's when it's time to look for an alternate account. And you can use that account just for MFA codes.
Okay.
You can still keep the account for your routine correspondence, but just use it for MFA codes if you don't want to switch your email address.
Just another level of protection. Well, certainly, it's important that our members protect and secure their contact information. But equally, and if not even more importantly, members should be protecting their financial and identity accounts. Given that, Tom, what are the most important non-TRS accounts people should secure, like banks and investments, Social Security, and the like?
Yeah, well, I'll be a little selfish here. And as you mentioned in my introduction, I've worked at other state agencies. The gold standard for identity in the state of Georgia is your driver's license or your ID card. I would go to dds.ga.gov in the state of Georgia, and I would, if you don't have an account, create one and lock it down like we've discussed. Strong, unique password, MFA code.
Okay.
Sometimes if the bad guys get there before you, they get to set all that up, right? So on the federal side, an identity account is your Social Security account. That's identity and financial.
Yes.
Now looking at the financial side of things in the government space, Department of Revenue. Something I saw in my days at Department of Revenue was the bad guys would go and file fake tax returns with big refunds on them. Then you go to file your tax return, and guess what?
Yeah.
It gets rejected, and they got your refund. So definitely set up your DOR account, lock it down. You can even put a PIN on your account at both DOR and the IRS.
Okay.
And the IRS and DOR, the IRS is just the federal version of the Department of Revenue.
Okay.
And then on the financial side, Social Security Administration, same thing. They're using very strong identity services there by a company called ID.me or login.gov. So they have very strong, but beat the bad guys to the punch. I've got a family member that went to file for Social Security. Somebody had already set up an account and filed on their behalf.
Oh, my goodness.
And they had to go through a whole lot of red tape to get their account and their Social Security benefit back. So protect those accounts.
Understood.
Now, in banking, right, it's the same thing. Wherever you do your banking, lock it down. Again, the same factors we talked about: strong account security, multi-factor authentication, monitor your activity, set up alerts. That's your banking, that's your investment accounts, that's your retirement accounts. I mean, that is a gold mine for the bad guys. Protect those accounts with everything.
I agree. Totally agree. Very recently, I set up a bunch of alerts on one of my accounts, and the first time I saw it, it kind of caught me off guard. I had to remember that I had done it, but definitely it's better to be in the know than not in the know. So take advantage of those alerts will be a big plus. Tom, many years ago, I was a victim of credit fraud. As a result, I froze my credit to help block similar attempts if they were to come along. Why is freezing your credit one of the most effective steps a person can take, and how difficult is it to do so?
Well, freezing your credit's very easy to do.
Okay.
But you want to freeze your credit to be proactive. If you have set up credit alerts set up, that's reactive. The bad things already happened by then, and cleaning that up can take years. If you freeze your credit with the 3 big credit bureaus, then somebody tries to apply for credit as you, they're going to get denied. And you'll get an alert usually. And the 3 credit bureaus, Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion, it's very easy. It takes 5 minutes per account to set it up. And if you need to apply for credit, you can unfreeze or thaw those accounts in 5 minutes as well. Again, secure those codes because they're going to give you codes when you set up those accounts. So when you're trying to buy that new car and you need to get a loan and they block your credit, well, you got to unfreeze your credit and then you'll drive off a lot in that fancy new car, I hope.
Certainly, Tom is speaking to some of you out there. He is not speaking to me. Well, every day, Tom, there seems to be new scams, deep fakes, and other threats. AI-generated deep fakes are becoming more and more realistic. How can members protect themselves against these emerging types of threats?
I would go back to the zero trust model. You can't trust what your eyes see and what your ears hear.
Yeah.
These AI tools are getting so good, you really can't tell the difference. As I scroll through social media, I look at something that looks too good to be true, and it usually is. Some of the AI models out there, you can ask, hey, is this real? And they can look at some of the artifacts and tell you, nah, this isn't real. Or maybe they don't know. But you can't trust everything you see. Trust but verify. Back to that concept.
Yes.
Because this stuff is so good. Even audio recordings, right? They can take our voice and use AI, and I could have a conversation with you, and it's AI, and it's not me, and you won't be able to tell the difference.
Oh, my goodness gracious. That's scary.
It is. And you see some people that use audio challenges as passwords, right? Use your voice to authenticate. Well, that's no longer effective because of AI. They can take a recording of your voice, and it's real authentic.
Oh, my goodness. Unbelievable. Well, speaking of those, financial scams are getting more sophisticated as well. What trends are you seeing right now that members should know about?
I'll tell you a scary one I saw recently. A member got a text message, and it's, hey, was this transaction you? Was it legitimate? And it's a yes, no prompt, right? Was this you? No matter how you answer that, you're going to get a phone call. That phone call is going to look like it's from your bank or whatever institution is reaching out to you. It looks legitimate. They'll authenticate you. They'll ask you some information. What they have is going to be good. They're going to convince you, yeah, that's you. Then they're going to say, I'm going to send you a code. Read that code back to me. Well, guess what that code is? That's your MFA code to get into your bank. So you give that to them. They've breached your account and they transfer all your money out.
Oh my.
And unfortunately, the bank sees that as you gave up the keys to the kingdom, and they're not going to give you your money back. Again, don't trust text messages or emails that you get or phone calls. Trust, but if you get that, don't respond to the text message. Call your bank directly and say, hey, I just got this fraud alert. Was this you? That's my advice on that one. They're getting quite sophisticated, and that's the challenge of the day. The next one will even be more sophisticated. So always be aware, but don't trust any of that stuff.
Wow. Just as sure as we figure out how to block one thing, it'll be the next thing later and greater.
Constantly evolving.
Yes, constantly evolving. Well, many scams come by text, as we mentioned already. Why should our members never trust a text unless they themselves initiated that interaction?
Well, again, like I just mentioned the scenario above, the fraudsters are going to use your text messages to look very legitimate. They're going to challenge you for information. I would say don't respond to the text message. Call the institution in question and just make sure it's legitimate.
Okay. Okie dokie. Well, Tom, there are tools for just about everything these days. And even as we're seeing in some of our Wealth Builders classes, there are tools for wealth building and management. There are tools for improved health and lifestyle. There are even tools to help a golfer lower his handicap. And I'm not speaking to anyone in particular.
I need that tool bad.
Well, that makes me think about, Tom, tools for personal security. And you mentioned this earlier on that there were tools like this. So as we move toward our last few questions, let's talk about passwords and pass keys. Password managers used to seem intimidating, but they're much easier to use and navigate now. Why should members consider using one of these?
Again, as I've said on this podcast a few times, we got hundreds of accounts out there. And if we're saying they need to be unique, strong passwords, there's no way you can remember them. Mm-hmm. With a password manager, all those accounts are stored inside that password wallet. And they're encrypted, and the only password you need to know is the one to the wallet. That needs to be a very complex passphrase. But once you access that wallet, then it can autofill that account. You don't have to retype that super long, complex password anymore. And there are many wallets out there. Some are free, some cost money, and that's really a personal decision. You know, I use one that costs money because it tends to work on all the different platforms. It works on the iPhone, the Android, it works on Windows, it works on Mac, it works inside of browsers. And there are quite a few commercially available products that do that. Tools like 1Password, Bitdefender, Keeper, LastPass. There's also some free ones out there, and they tend to be more platform-centric. Apple uses an application on your iPhone or your Mac called Passwords. Mm-hmm. You can store all your passwords inside that wallet, and as long as you're on your Mac or your iPhone, it can autofill them.
Okay.
Android has that as well. Samsung has Samsung Pass. There are tools out there that are free, and there are tools that cost money but have a little additional options.
Got it.
That's really a personal decision.
Okay. Passkeys are starting to replace passwords in many places. What are passkeys, and why are they more secure?
Well, that is the beauty of passkeys, is passwords go away. Passkeys use a technical concept called public-private encryption. When you set up a passkey on an account, it stores a component with the account, and it stores a component on your device.
Okay.
And the only way to authenticate and use that is to have that connection between them. The public side is a negotiation on the language. The private side is a key that only you have, the remote end doesn't have, and if they match, it lets you access your account. Oh. And in many cases, it's a pop-up on your phone. Hey, was this you? Yes. And it lets you in your account. Passkeys are the highest level of security, even above an authenticator app. You're starting to see them more and more available out there.
Okay.
I know I was recently setting up an account at one of the retailers out there, and they had passkeys as an option, and I couldn't be happier to set that up.
Oh, I learned something else new today. And as you know, ladies and gentlemen, I've shared this a few times before. Any day we learn something new is a great day. Well, Tom, as we near to the close here, if you could give TRS members just 3 simple steps that they can dramatically improve their security, what would they be?
Secure your identity and financial accounts. That's easier said than done, but use the concepts we've talked about. Set up MFA, set up a password wallet, store unique, complex passwords and MFA codes. Watch account activity. Again, the quicker you act, the better chance you have of recovering from the fraudulent activity.
Okay.
And then don't trust text messages and email. Verify their source. Call the source directly, not via what was sent to you, and just make sure you're dealing with who you think you're dealing with.
Trust and verify.
Correct.
Finally, Tom, where can TRS members go for more information to help them secure their accounts and their information?
Well, as we spoke about earlier, these schemes are getting more and more sophisticated, and they're changing every single day. So you can never stop learning.
Right.
I'll tell you, a podcast I listen to every single day is Clark Howard.
Yes.
Clark Howard has some very valuable common sense podcasts. And as a bonus, once a week, he has our friend Wes Moss on there to give financial information.
Yes.
So I would say clark.com is his website. Subscribe to his podcast. They're pretty 15, 20-minute podcasts. Listen to him. He gives practical advice on a lot of things we've talked about today. Also, I got to plug our TRS website. We put a lot of valuable information out on our website. Check out your TRS website. We're always putting new information out there. And certainly, anytime we see fraudulent activity, we want to post it out there and give you some suggestions on how to be careful with it.
Absolutely. Tom, thank you for joining us today in the podcast studio. On behalf of the entire podcast team and all of us here at TRS, especially the folks in the IT department, we appreciate you taking time to come down and talk with us today and share your knowledge and experience. The goal of our podcast is to empower and equip our members and friends as they move toward their retirement. No doubt the insight you share with us today will go a long way towards continuing that goal. Members and friends, this concludes our interview with Tom McMurray. We want to thank each of you for tuning in to today's episode. This is your podcast, created with you, your retirement, and your future in mind. We're grateful for your continued support, and we commit to learning with you as we go along the way. We encourage you to share this podcast with your family and friends. And if you have any questions or feedback, feel free to reach out to us at podcast@trsga.com. Join us next time for TRS, Your Retirement in Focus.